That's when I learned that rules they're not really a line that you can't cross. They're made out of all these little words, and there's always gaps where you can get between the letters and get between the words and just go where you need to go. So, one of my philosophies is just keep heading for the law at the speed that you're going. If you get the right terminal velocity, it will open up and create a doorway. You can just go right through it. And that's kind of something
that's beautiful, man.
Better for worse.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the snake always. It's like the law came from the snake, and you just take the end of the snake and just feed it back into the mouth. That kind of vision used to come to me a lot when dealing with policy reform and legislation and looking like, okay, the law says that and you've broken it. No, I'm misinterpreting it this way. What it really says is that the law's wanting me to do this instead. And so this is what the thing that I am allowed to do. So this is where I am going to go, And if there's an ambiguous spacing, create some new law, make a new road. And that's kind of what I ended up doing with drug policy in New Zealand. Yeah. I did a Christian thing from when I was about 18 into my 20s and didn't really even drink any alcohol. It was later that I saw really through a spiritual path that the plants that people were using in different cultures around the world were opening them up to spiritual reality, which I was experiencing without any drugs. And I thought, well, maybe this is going to be something that could help out, some of my friends that aren't seeing anything and hearing anything, because I was seeing all sorts of stuff everywhere already.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us about that, man. That's, I heard an interview from you maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I think you said when you were a kid, you could create storms with your mind. Is that right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. Okay. We can go there.
Yeah, man.
I guess, yeah. And I know, I guess a lot of people are going to want to take all this with a grain of salt, but what I'm going to do is I am going to accurately, regurgitate my actual memories that I have, and you can make what you like of it, to be honest. And maybe there's confirmation bias, and maybe there's all sorts of, maybe my memories have shifted, but I'll tell you how I remember my life.
Yeah.
I guess my first experience with other drugs, though, let me just touch on this. And my first experience with research chemicals is being asthmatic as a child and going to the doctor and a lot of things not working. And I had all these, I guess I had a whole lot of fears, and I was locked up and I was having breathing issues. And eventually the doctor said, well, listen, there is one thing you could try. To my parents, there's a clinical trial going on for a drug called Zasten, Zasten, and can't find it now, but take the pills and write down on this piece of paper what's happening every day. And so I just did what they told me to do. And I was told to come and report back, when the paper was full, and they didn't tell me to advise anyone of any adverse events. What I found when I took the pills is that one day I could see a kid riding a BMX around on top of the school and nobody else could see it. That was really interesting. And then another day I was sitting in math class looking out the window, and I saw some guys leading an elephant into the right across the courtyard, and it was all painted. And so it was basically Ganesh. And I saw that, and no one else could see that. Hey, where's the elephant? What are you guys doing with the elephant? The elephant. What are you talking about, Matt? The elephant's gone. I'm like, well, a couple of friends of mine were like, hey, how come you're seeing this stuff? And I'm like, oh, maybe it's the pills. And so I think actually that was my first commercial transaction as well. My friends were like, hey, can we get some of these pills? I'm like, well, you want to pay for them? Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. That's what I see, supply demand. So I just kept writing on a piece of paper, went back to the doctor and gave it to him. He's like, oh, you're seeing things. These are called hallucinations. You need to stop taking the pills, but he didn't ask for them back. Anyway, so that's my first psychedelic experience, my first experience with research chemicals, and my first commercial transactions. I just kind of felt there was something else out there, and I could feel when my eyes were closed that I could feel things through my hands and through my feet, and I could feel other energies. When I was going to sleep at night, I could hear voices calling out. And I know it's textbook sort of schizophrenia, I know, but it gets better, it gets more interesting. And I was just drawn to it, and I'd go to the library and just pull out books, and I learned how to read and digest kind of scientific literature early on, and how to look up references and go back. I started with Lyle Watch and Supernature. I read about yogis and what they were doing in India and so on, and powers that they had, and it just helped me feel a little bit more normal, I guess. And and the religion that which they were putting out wasn't, the education wasn't really, I didn't really connect it with anything spiritual and real. I thought it was a bunch of dogma. I liked some of the characters. I was drawn to, I thought Jesus seemed really cool. But a lot of the other stuff about you have to do this and you can't do that, all that commandments and laws and that, it just didn't seem to gel for me. Because of the relationship that I was forming with law, was that that's something which is trying to hold us back and that we need to transcend. Yeah, and so I didn't really connect. I felt drawn to ancient Egyptian deities and so on, because it seemed to be I could just feel there's something more powerful there. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just strikes me you're incredibly lucky not to like somehow find the space to exist in that way without having it shut down with medication or whatever. Because I mean, that's so often in our culture, that's what happens. People just get scared and just like, well, that's crazy, give them drugs, turn it off, and in so many traditional cultures, that's what makes someone a shaman or a visionary, a religious leader, whatever, is it's just a different interpretation of these same experiences, right? So in our culture, we tend to judge that as like, oh, that's mental illness, that's bad, it's not normal. And in pretty much every other culture around the world, they're like, wow, this is something really special. We need to nurture this, train it, and like refine it so that we can all benefit from it as a culture,
Totally. Yeah. And we started making these pills. And, over 8.5 years, we sold 26 million pills to 400,000 consumers on 10.5 million occasions. And there were 0 deaths, 0 lasting injuries. And when government did research to find out what was going on, nobody was getting addicted. So they said, well, this works. And they'd said to me, if this works, you can rewrite the drug laws. And what I'd felt, when I was like, God, what am I supposed to be doing? I felt head for the laws and just do the right thing and follow your heart attitude. And if you're doing the right thing, it's going to create this energy around you that's going to push the laws back out of the way, and they're going to reform around you. And so that was my belief, and that if I just change the ideas in my mind, I can change them in the people around me, I can change them in my nation, I can change them on the planet. And so I am going to take my idea and I'm going to go to take the whole planet with this idea. So I went to my government. They allowed me over these years to rewrite the legislation and create new legislation. I set up, a lot of other people copied my products because I didn't know what a patent was, and started selling them everywhere. So I went to them, guys, I'm not going to sue you guys. You've all broken my copyright and copied my products, but we're going to sit around a table here and you guys are going to pay for the lawyers and we're going to draft new legislation. We're going to put it out there and change the world. So we got our legislation through Parliament. Legislation